Hello and welcome, this is the Clay Golem. We're back in Foundry VTT, if I can put my teeth in, and we're looking at another add-on today. Now in the last add-on video we were looking at some effects and things like that. So I'm just going to my manage modules, and what we were looking at, we were using DFreds with advanced macros, and we were combining those with JB2A for the actual effects themselves. And we were using, which one were we using in the end? With Sequencer. That's right. So we were using those kind of combined together, and we got some lovely little effects that we could do. And we had our macros down on the bottom left hand corner so that we could click a button, it would play our little animation, and it would apply the effect to the character. So we played with Hayley casting Bless all over the place, and it would do an animation and it would apply Bless, which was fantastic. Now, one of our viewers commented that there is a different way of doing this, and that's what we're going to look at in this video. So the one we're going to look at in this video is this one here, D&D5e Animations. Now, for this to work, as I click that, it tells me I also need the automated animations as well. So we're going to add both of those. So this does kind of the same thing, but it comes at it from a different angle, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. It is still utilizing, wherever they are, JB2A, so Jules and Ben's animated assets. And again, we're using the free content version of that, and we can do most of the stuff that we need to do. So let's load that and have a quick look at what this does automatically. Here we go, we've got an animations update here, and actually this is quite useful that this has popped up right now. It's telling you all of the animations that have been previously in here, that have been now been updated, etc. So as you can see, there's things like aura of, we've got aid on token spell, alter self, we've got firebolt down on the left hand side, and fireball, rapier attacks, mace attacks, all sorts of things. So let's just click update and make sure that we're as up to date as we can be for that. So when we were looking at DFreds with Sequencer, we were only looking at kind of the spell effects and applying those. If I move these two close together, nice and snugly here, what this does for us, it provides some automatic combat animations. So if we take Nundro here, and we're going to target Hayley, let's open Nundro's character and put him over to one side so we can see everything. Just keep your eye on these tokens. So if I'm going to do a Warhammer attack, so I can just click that attack. If you watch the tokens, we get a little animation. Okay, so every time, this is by default, these are already built in, it will do a little animation when we do that. So we can do that with his Warhammer. We can do that. What other equipment does he happen to have? Oops. We've got a dagger, so we're going to get a different animation once the attack button is pressed. Okay, so we get a small dagger attack, and of course we get our dice rolls and things. So that adds a nice little extra thing if we want it. What about if we are casting spells? So we're targeting Hayley still. Let's do an Eldritch Bolt. We do an attack. Okay, that doesn't look particularly great. Let's separate them apart like Eldritch Bolt usually would be. We can see this a bit nicer. Oh, yep, got to make my roll. And we actually get that attack effect. So as you saw, I've just activated the add-on, and straight away all of this stuff is working. So that's really, really nice. Nice little animations, nice and easy, lovely jubbly. Okay, so let's look at a couple of scenarios that we were looking at in the previous video. So specifically Hayley, who is one of the more complex characters from the fact that she has a lot of spells that do effects and things. And of course we've been using things like Bless and Shield of Faith. Just so you know, Hayley has a mace attack, so we can do exactly the same thing the other way, and we get this little mace animation hidden by the dice on this occasion, but it's there, which is good. And this is all set up by default. What happens if we go to Hayley's spells? Let's just make sure she's got spells again. And we want to cast Bless. So we're going to cast this. We get this little animation on Hayley straight away. plays a nice little noise. So we've got these sound effects, not just for the weapons, but for the spells built in as well. And we get that little aura. And that's very, very similar to what we had in the previous video when we were playing with Sequencer and doing it. It's in fact, because we're pulling from JB2A, it's the same animation. It's just being applied by a different add-on. But what this hasn't done, it's played the animation on Haley. It hasn't set a status effect for us. It hasn't applied it to Nundro and put that on him as well. If I select both the tokens and do it again, it's only playing that on Haley. Okay, so it's not playing the animation on Nundro, it's not applying the effect to Nundro, and in this scenario you would want it to apply for both. So the fact that Nundro's targeted and his token is selected, we're not getting those results that we ideally would want, because of course when Haley's casting Bless, what we should be saying, want to be saying is, who are you casting on, select those targets, and then it applies that effect. We're not quite there yet. We could do that with Sequencer. The only thing with Sequencer, the way we were doing it, was the player casts the spell and then the DM applies the effect and the animation as part of the macro down here, which was a little bit laborious, as in the DM's got to find the right macro, and there is only so many macros on here. What is there? 5 hot bars, 10 on each. That's a total of 50 to include everything the DM needs. So that could get overwhelming, especially if you decided to put weapon attacks on there as well. So I wonder if there's something we can do to combine the techniques we used in the previous video along with these animations, which are built in very nicely. First of all, let's look at some of the options we've got for this particular module. So if we go to configure settings, okay, and we've got a couple of different things here that we installed for this occasion. So it's this 5e Animations. Okay, this is the one we're using that is driving those animations for us, and we've just got a couple of options here. I put debug mode on when I was having a quick little look at it previously, just to make sure it gives you a little bit of extra information, just to make sure things are working the way I wanted them to. And we've got an update menu here that is literally just to update, so that doesn't do much on its own. But let's look at the automated animations one. So this is what's one of them animates it and one of them contains all the information for the animations. Basically, that's kind of what we're looking at. Only got one option here, which is a whole menu. Let's click that. Let's get rid of that in the background so we can see this one. This is the automatic animations menu. So AA, automatic animations, automatic recognition menu. We've got some options across the top here: melee weapons, ranged weapons, on token, template stuff, auras, preset. Now I've just clicked each of those as I've gone along, and you'll notice, yeah, it's a little bit slow in the menu, I have found. It went to melee really quickly. It's quite a lot of information behind the scenes that it's loading here. So sometimes if I go to template, yeah, there's just a little delay in swapping menus, but it's not a big deal. Because again, remember, this is going to be setup stuff. You're not going to be doing this when you're actually playing. So looking under melee stuff, we've got axe, bash, baton, beak, blade, bone, butterfly, not sure what that is. So what this is basically saying anytime you do an action that includes the word, for example, blade, it will potentially play the animation that's hidden behind this information. So if we go down to sword, so we've got great sword here, but we've also got sword. In fact, if I use this search at the top and just do sword, okay, we've now got sword, short sword, laser sword, which is not really applicable to D&D, not normal D&D anyway, it might be for you. We've got great sword. So the way this works, if Nundro was using a great sword, it is smart enough to say, I want to look for the animation that goes with great sword rather than just picking up the word sword from there. Same with short sword, so it will find short sword. But if you had, for example, a long sword +1, it's going to have to try and default and say which of these is closest. It's going to go with sword. If you had a Vorpal sword, it would be going, well, it's not a great Vorpal sword, it's not a short sword, it will pick up sword. You absolutely can create your own ones in here and say, well, actually I want sword, but I also want Vorpal sword because I'm going to do something different for that. So you can, I think it's in these dots here, there we go, you can duplicate this effect and then modify it and change it to your needs. Now I don't need to do that. Certainly at this point, there's no way any of my players have got a Vorpal sword at this point. So any sword that doesn't have short sword, doesn't have laser sword, doesn't have great sword will default to using sword. Regardless, it might be a sword +1, it might be a sword of defense, whatever it could be, including ones that you've made. If you've made your own items, again, it will use that to try and do it. So you may want to be careful how you name your items, but you might want to have your own animation for those anyway. Right, enough gabbling. So let's open this up and have a look what is in here. So first of all, we have a preview. So if I click preview, it opens a little window and it's showing us the animation that plays when the sword animation is called. So it's this, yeah, it's a little sword. We can look at, for example, let's look at greatsword, do the preview. Very similar, it's slower and it's a bigger sword, so it's definitely different. I've not looked at laser sword, that should, yeah, there we go, it looks more like a lightsaber, as you would expect. Okay, so you can see a little preview of the animation and say, is that actually going to be suitable for what I want? Let's pop it back to this one. We also have this option for sound only. What that means is if we click this, notice this little music note goes green. It means when we make that attack, it will play the sound, but it won't play the animation. Okay, so it will make the chink noise or whatever your weapon or spell is without playing the animation to go with it. So you can turn that on and off. And we have this macro button here. We'll come back to that a little bit later because that's the bit we're going to use to do a bit more magic with. Okay, so in any of these, so we're in sword, you can see primary animation it's going to be, we get a type. There might be a creature attack, generic, or this is a weapon, so we're going to have a weapon. And under the weapon menu, the animation we have spears, swords, all sorts of stuff. Now obviously we want sword for a sword. And there's a couple of variants for some of them. There's only one for this one. And for some of them, there's more than one colour option as well. So you can choose those and fiddle with those if you like. And all that is doing is telling you what this animation is going to be. Now, there is the ability to have custom stuff in here. So you could pull a different animation. Notice the database sign here brings up JBAs. So you could, if you wanted to, I don't know, I happen to select Poison Arrow here. You could say, I want to use when you swing a sword, I want the animation to be a poison arrow. You can do that. I mean, that wouldn't make sense, but you could do that. So you can customize it that way if you want to. Or of course, if you're making your own animations, if you're far smarter than I am, you could make your own animations and pull them in and use those instead. But to be honest, a lot of these default animations are perfectly workable just in the free variant of JB2A. Bit of a mouthful. Okay, so again, we've got a couple of things under here. We've got some options. Now, I haven't played with any of these, and I'm not sure that I need to. It talks about a bit of delay, scale, the how opaque the effect is. So you might want something more ghostly. You know, Vorpal sword, you might have an animation that isn't opacity of 1 to make it look a bit more ghostly or something. You can play with those if you want to. Color tint. So here we got sound. So if we want, we can turn sound off. So it will only play the animation. It will not play that sound file. But with that ticked on, we can, you can see we've got a line here where we can, whoops a daisy, close the error. We can actually change this file if we wanted to. So if I wanted to use, oh, I don't know, one of the animations, a crackling campfire that we've used in previous videos, if I wanted that to be my sword sound instead, for whatever reason, I can change that sound file. Or I could just turn the sounds off. Okay, so if some of the sounds you find it's a bit too intrusive, there's too many weapon sounds, you could say, actually, I don't want any melee weapons to make sounds, just play the animation. Or play the sound but not the animation, however you want to do it. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? And I have no idea what this range switch is. It's obviously to do with the way things are animated. I've not played with that, and I'm not going to play with it. It's not going to do that because I don't need to. That's not going to help me. That's much more advanced. It's probably more advanced that I'm ever going to need if we get to a point where we need to look at that stuff. That's what we'll do. Remember, we want to enhance our players' experience within this, as well as making our DM job as simple as possible. And personally, as an old pen and paper player, I don't want to turn my Foundry experience into Baldur's Gate. I don't want to turn it into a computer game. Yeah, I want it to look good. I want to be able to enjoy it, but I want them focusing on the role play and the story, not focusing on the graphics too much. So some of these animations and things, you know, I wouldn't bother with them a lot of the time. I am for this video because they're here. Why not? And you guys probably would like to use them. So, all right, stop babbling. Having a babbling day. All right, so we got the melee things here. And of course, while I search for sword, we've got everything else, and we can do that with anything we like here. There's a hoof. We've got a pick, pike, a spike, stab, a spear, staff. There's loads of them. And as I said, you can just clone one and choose something else if you want to. So loads built in, brilliant, and it's really, really useful that they're already here, ready to go. And you just saw, we just did a couple of attacks. We used a dagger, we used a warhammer, we used a mace. Boom, they're already in place. Lovely. Ranged, so we've got things like acid arrow, acid splash, antimatter rifle, not relevant to most of D&D games, but of course this isn't just for D&D. Catapult, you know, darts, firebolt, fire ray. Let's look at firebolt, for example. Just click preview. That's what it looks like. Yeah, so you might go, that's the animation that I want for one of my spells. Okay, great. Well, if you can use that animation if that's what you want. Brilliant. Yeah, all sorts of things in here at all. Magic missile. That's a common one we'd probably encounter. Look. That's a lovely little animation. So it's going to fly from the source. It's going to fly to the target, which is what we want. Yeah, magic missile. It's a good choice. We also have these on token effects. So as you can see, this is going to cover things like our bless spell here. Okay, because they are effects that play on a target, on a on a token and affect that token. So again, if we do the preview here, we're going to see exactly what we would expect. We saw that at the beginning of this video. It's the same animation we used in the previous one as well. And again, you can see that we can switch it to sound only if we want to. This has a type of spell rather than weapon, of course. We've got an animation for bless, but we could change it. We could change it to the cure wounds one. And we could say that's our bless symbol. If that's what we want to do, we absolutely can do that. We don't have to use these defaults. Variant here, we've got the intro and the loop version, which is, yeah, use whichever one you want. Absolutely fine. We've only got the one color yellow. And again, we've got some options, same kind of options that we don't really understand. And again, we have that ability to turn sound on and off, or if we wanted to change that. So all of them are very similar in the fact that they've got these same categories, which is lovely. But we know that not our problem, but the solution that we want to find is Hayley casts bless on herself and Nundro. We want to play that animation. We want to apply that status effect, and we want it to disappear when the time is up. And we've been able to do some of those bits, and now we can do the beginning bit but not the end bit. Okay, so before, when we were using DFreds, I deleted all these macros. If you recall, we used DFreds. Let's just make sure we got bless up here. We used DFreds, which enables us to, there you go, apply bless. Now you'll notice that has played, if I stop talking over it, it has played the sound and it has played the animation, but we haven't created an animation. What's happening is that automated animations is going, oh, hang on a minute, you're doing bless. It's looking that up in that table. It's going, I know what bless is. When you do bless, I do that sound and I do that animation. So straight away, just by coming straight to here, DFreds is is applying the status effect, but automated animations is picking that up. There we go. So we can cast that on Nundro. Again, it's applying the sound effect and the visual to the token and applying the effect to that character as well. Just to prove that, when come in here we go, we've got bless and it's on 60 seconds and we know that Time's Up will count that down. Oh, isn't this nice? This is suddenly much easier. What you did also possibly notice is when I was looking at bless and the weapon attacks, I was doing them from the character. So I went into here for Hayley to cast bless. Animation, we got the sound, but we haven't got the status effect. One of the issues that we talked about creating a compendium in the last video where we can take our DFreds effects, add on the animations for sequencer with that by writing that macro to create an overall macro that we had down here in our macro bar at the bottom left, so that actually the DM can select the character, click the macro, and it will play the animation and it will apply the effects and things when that spell is cast. And we said, oh, well, what we would like to be able to do is when the player goes to their character sheet and casts the spell, it does those bits automatically. And we couldn't really do that using those macros. What we could do is create a compendium, a wizard's compendium, a bard's compendium for all of those spells and effects, and they could use that to apply themselves. But wouldn't it be nicer if we can just cast a spell and then the spell does all those extra things on the end? And we can do that because it's really useful. Okay, let's not use bless because bless is automatically doing those animations for us. Let's look at Shield of Faith. Okay, so again, we click Shield of Faith on Hayley. It applies Shield of Faith. We've got no music, we've got no animation, there's nothing already built into that, and we can take that off again. So I'm going to drag Shield of Faith down here to my macro bar. Okay, so I've now got this macro called Toggle Convenient Effect Shield of Faith. Right click, edit that macro, and we know that all that macro is doing, I'm going to change the name because that drives me slightly mad. Oops. There we go. So I'm going to call it SE Shield of Faith, spell effect for Shield of Faith. I'm just going to call it that just for this purposes. But we know all this script is doing here is saying, hey, DFreds, do this Shield of Faith thing. Okay. So I can save that macro. Okay, I'm going to go back into my configure settings here and go back into this automated animations menu. I am going to search for Shield of, I'm going to search for, oh, there we go. See what I mean? Just sometimes the menus are a little bit slow. I've got Shield of Faith here. I can open this up. Now at the moment, Shield of Faith, while it's in here, its primary animation is marker with no animation, no variant, no color. So there's not actually anything in here, is there? So that's the very first thing we're going to do, is because if we go to preview, look at the preview, there's nothing to play. So can I find, I mean, I could go, oh, shield effects. What's shield effects? I could use this energy one that's playing over on the right hand side right now. I could choose to use that. What is there under spell? I'm not going to spend ages finding the right one. There isn't one already for Shield of Faith. That's okay. We don't need that. I might go, oh, Toll the Dead, Big Bell. No, that's not going to be working. Do I want to use Fireball? That's not appropriate for this. But I can find something, anti-life shell, or whatever it is that I want to be able to use for this. Now, I'm suggesting that actually spell might not be the right place to look. And I suspect shield might be where we want to be. I mean, that looks like shield is just for shield spell. What about shield effects? I don't think there was many in there, was there? Ice shield, fire shield, energy field. We might use that. I wonder, can I remember where we had one where we had shields that were span round us? I wonder where that might have been. I don't think it was under, like, we've got particles. Stars, swells, all sorts of different things here. I know I'm getting off track clicking on those, but Look, divination, evocation, signs and stuff. Liquid, lightning, leaves, ice, generic. What have we got under generic? Impact. Outpulse could work. Looks like you're casting something. So vortex, that could work. Let's keep looking. Conditions is things. So conditions is where we've got those shields and things we found before. Runes. I mean, I would suggest that's for magic users rather than anything else. Light. Horror. Fear. Dizzy stars, that's fast. Cracked shield, etc. So there's just tons of stuff that we could use here. Energy. Let's use, I'm going to use this one just for the sake of it. So we're on Shield of Faith. I've decided I'm going to use this animation for it. There's only one variant. It only comes in blue. But I can actually leave that on there. I don't need to do any of these options. It's got a sound already. Barrier spell. And we've got a preview. So let's close that. I'm going to move that out of the way. And now let's try Shield of Faith on Hayley again. Still no sound. And that will be because it's obviously not picking up that that's what we're doing with it. But that's the animation we want. So if I open Hayley up and cast it from here, hopefully that will pick it up for us. That's better. So the animation is working. We're getting our sound effect when the player casts the spell. So we've got that bit, but we're not applying the status effect. But we can apply the status effect by clicking our button down here. Turn it on, turn it off. Okay, and we know the status effect will time out. So what we want is this macro button down the bottom here for Shield of Faith. We want that to activate when the player casts the spell and it runs the animation. So let's come back in here. Remember this button I said here, Add Macro. All right, let's click on Add Macro. We can choose when to play that macro. At the same time as the animation, wait for the macro to finish, only do the macro, no animation, or wait for the animation to finish before then doing the macro. So I'm going to do concurrent at the same time, and here I can enter a macro. Just by clicking in here, I get a little drop down arrow. Now I've got a whole bunch of stuff because I've played with all sorts of different macros over the series of these videos and things, and at some point I've got to work out how to delete some of these macros I'm not using. Here is why I renamed that macro SE for Spell Effect Shield of Faith, because that makes that stand out for me. Okay, so if I'm going to do all my spell effects, if I call them all SE something, it's going to make it easier to find in what potentially becomes a huge macro list. So, in theory, when we run this, we're going to cast a spell. It will play our animation. It will play our sound, and it will run our DFreds macro, which will apply that, and then times up will remove it. That's the plan. Okay, place your bets in the comments on how well this is going to work. All right, so we're back in Hayley. Let's give her some spells back because it keeps complaining that she's got no spells left. Shield of Faith on Hayley. Yes, I want to cast that. There we go. So we've got a player-driven ability to cast a spell that plays the animation, plays the sound, and puts on the DFreds effect onto the character, which will time out after 600 seconds in this case when we do that. That's what we were after, wasn't it? Okay, so it's player-driven. They cast a spell, they need to target. Now, what happens if Hayley targets Nundro with that? Let's do it again, Hayley. You must be getting tired of casting the same spell again and again and again. Good job you're not real. Okay, so we're going to cast that. This time we've got a target. That's not going to work. Okay, so what it's done is, yes, it played the sound effect, but it's removed it from Hayley rather than applying it to there. Now, the reason for that, if we go back and look at the DFreds macro, this is toggling the effect on the token, not on the target. So that's our only issue we've got with this. With normal combat, if I'm attacking Nundro here, I can click Mace. I've got him targeted, so it knows the selected token is attacking the targeted token. That all works. Lovely jubbly. Here we go, Mace to the face. Okay. But with the spell, it's not quite that simple. So what I would need to say with Haley is, let's drag somebody else out. Where's Baldric? Get out of here. And we can bring Sorryman out here as well. So if Haley is saying, oh, right, I'm going to cast Bless, and we're saying, who do you want to cast it on? Rather than holding down Shift and pressing T and going, I want to cast it on those three, what we need Haley to do is to actually say, right, you need to select, so just left click on one of the tokens, hold down Shift, and those are the three people I'm casting it on. Brilliant. Now cast your Bless. Why did it not apply the effect? Because we haven't done that for Bless. We haven't done that for Bless. I need to set that one up so we can test it. But I can do that for Shield of Faith. Again, yes, I know you're out of spell. So for Shield of Faith, it played the animation. Hang on a second. Did that do something odd? Let's turn Shield of Faith off for everybody. Let's not have anybody targeted. Shield of Faith, please, Haley. We've got those three tokens selected. It's playing it on Haley's token for the animation and the sound effect. DFreds is applying it to all of the selected tokens, not targeted but selected. That works as we want to. So if I've got Haley selected and targeted, Sorryman selected and targeted, and Baldric selected and targeted, the problem we've got is the spell effect is using, DFreds is applying the effect based on token. The animations is applying based on target. So if I do this, in theory, don't do it from down there. Haley, you go away and cast. I know I've got no spell slots. Don't consume. Just... Right. So is it really smooth? No, we're not there yet, are we? We're not quite there. But it's much, much better than where we were. Okay, so the most important thing is that we're selecting the tokens, not targeting, selecting the tokens that we want the spell to affect on. If we're not targeting correctly, it will play the animation on whatever is targeted, but it won't apply the effect. It will apply the effect on there. So there's a little bit of discipline there from the player of just saying, hey, and you might just say, look, hang on, let's turn it off again. You might say to the player that you're, get out. You're not worried about the, you know, you might say, Haley's casting it. Hold down Shift and select who else you want it to cast on. I want to cast it on Nundro and I want to cast it on Baldric. And then when I do that, it's only going to play the animation on Haley as the caster. It's not playing on the other two because they're not targeted. Is that a big deal? Hell no, it's really, really not. So you might just use that rather than saying, oh, also target them all to get the effect. Now again, as we move on and we look at some of these ads and we get better at it and more experienced, we might go, oh, hang on a minute, there's a really easy way to make that work where it will do it. And I could do that when we were looking at Sequencer. If you recall, go back and watch that bit of the video if you can, if you're wondering what I'm talking about. When we were writing the macro, there was a bit where we could put that the target was token, or we could have put the spell was going to be based on the token, or we could change that word token to target. So when we were writing our own macros, we could choose where we wanted to play the animation, on the token or the target. With this way, the default is it plays the animation on the target, but DFreds applies the effect on the tokens that are selected. So they're coming at it slightly different way. So we might look at if there's a way to do that. If I can find it, a way to adapt it, then yeah, we can do that, and then we can do a little tips video to show you how I managed to get that to work. I'm not great with macros and stuff. I keep saying that remember, I'm new to this as well. Everything I have learned about Foundry has been in these videos. Okay, no point did I pretend I'm an expert, and we are learning together. I'm trying to make as many mistakes as possible so that you guys can go, oh, right, I can go straight in and do what I want to do, and I can miss out all the rubbish that Clay Golem did. All the mistakes he made, I can jump to the solution. But if it goes wrong, I can see that Clay Golem made the same mistake, or there's a reason why he didn't do it that way, etc. Okay, no promises that this is perfect or the right way to do it. So I'm just going to have a very, very quick look. If I come off the macro, oh no, the macro just opens a new box at the top. That's fine. Yeah, I'm not sure there's any options here. Oh, look, I've said that now. We're going to have to investigate this now because I'm right here. Obviously, we're looking at Shield of Faith at the moment. I will make some of these changes to bless and stuff off camera. Okay, so the play on. So this is the animation, play target default self, the source of the spell, or the target, or both. So there isn't one to say token. It's only going to play on the caster, or the target, or the caster and the target. We can't say cast on the selected tokens, only the targeted tokens from what I can see here. So, okay, that's a bust straight away. All right, so let's not gabble on too much longer with you just watching me play with the same thing. But as you can see, Shield of Faith, we can get that working. DFreds doing the hard work that we need on the applying the effect. Time's up removing that at the end of the stuff. I know I didn't show that, but we've seen it several times before. One last thing you're thinking of, blimey, you're going to have this huge amount of macros down here on your toolbar again for powering the DFreds that is communicating with the automated animations. The answer is I don't need to do that. End the video, go to the compendium packs, open up my spells macro, and what I can do is I'm going to delete this one just so I haven't accidentally doubled up. I can drag this spell macro into this spell macro compendium that I made. Okay, so just by doing import entry, you can see that that's all it is. So just that DFreds one. And that means I don't need it. Chuck. Don't need it in the toolbar. Because it's still in the system, even if it's not taken up a toolbar slot. This macro box, when I've got it active, I can still find it in there. Yep, reckons there's 2 versions now, but that's okay. It's the same thing. Job done. Whew. We're getting closer, aren't we? We're getting closer to some beautiful automation and getting these things to work really, really nicely and smoothly so we can focus on playing the game and not on the admin. Yeah, having the macros down there is really, really good, but there's other things I want to use those macros for. I do like the idea of being able to... Haley, pack it in. That's not what I wanted. I do like the idea of being able to... I need to do it from actors, don't I? Having things like quick access to characters down here. And I might, even to be lazy and not open the character sheet, I can put down, you know, these moves and abilities and stuff if I want to. Whew. That was quite high speed, wasn't it? I hope that wasn't too intense. Sorry about that. But yeah, I'm quite excited about this one. It looks good. All right, guys, that's going to call an end to this video. Again, thank you for watching, and I really appreciate all the support. There's been some really nice comments from you guys who are doing this stuff. Keep your suggestions coming. Keep your ideas coming if there's things you want me to look at. Again, I'm not an expert, but if you're having a problem or there's something specific you want to do, let me know and I can have a look at it, because I'm going to learn from trying to solve your problems anyway. The only caveat to that is I play D&D. So if you're looking at a Shadowrun or Call of Cthulhu, I may not be able to help you. That might be game mechanics specific to those, but you can still ask, can't you? Cheers, guys. Take care.